Evening, everybody. Apologies for the slight late start there. My computer has decided to have a little bit of give me a little bit of a run around this evening. First thing must be the wee Halloween gremlins playing tricks on me. Welcome so much to this evening. I'm hoping that you can see the PowerPoint that's on my screen. I'm just going to swap to the PowerPoint now. If somebody was able to give me a little wave just to let me know that you can see the PowerPoint, that would be fantastic.
That's
Or
right.
shout out.
It was okay, Max, but you've put the the Teams window back in front of it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, I'm just going to go to slideshow because it's been a wee bit glitchy, so I'm just going to stick on this slideshow. So thank you so much for coming along this evening. I really hope this is going to be a helpful session for you. And what I've done is I've put together a series of slides, and actually there's quite a lot of information on the slides, and I don't want you to worry about that too much, because if there's anything that you want to go over or want to see again, I am recording this session, and of course I'll hand out the slides in the parent bulletin and pop them on the website as well. If there are any questions, Mrs. Walker is here as well, so if you want to pop them in the chat, if there's something that pops to mind as you go, please pop them in the chat and we'll do a wee Q&A at the end. So this is a study skills session for those in the senior phase, but if you're not a senior phase parent and you just come along to have a wee listen in, then you're more than welcome to stay, not a problem at all, because it might help you just with sort of study homework in general and getting them prepared and feeling confident about their learning at the Royal High School. And I've really named this session How to Help Your Child Get the Most Out of Studying, Working Smarter and Not Harder. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into prepping for all the assessments, assignments and exams over the next few years. And we want them to keep the stress levels low, but keep the sense of achievement and the sense of being in control really high. So the aims of this evening, I've got a few different aims. So what can students do to help improve their memory, mood, concentration? It's all research-based as well, isn't just stuff that we've observed as teachers and think works well. What I've done is I've looked into what cognitive psychotherapists and psychologists think about studying and keeping students stress-free when it comes to study, well, as stress-free as possible, and taking their advice. And we've embedded some little videos and clips and so on, which I won't be able to show you this evening as we go through the PowerPoint, but when you access it on the website, you'll be able to do that at your own leisure. And it's a really good thing to help point your young person in the direction of those videos, because it's actually aimed at them. Which techniques really work and which don't? And how can you as families help support your child's study and help improve their study habits? So I always like to think back to my own study days and thinking about how I learned when I was a student and then how I still learn now. And having a look at this little list, some of you will remember or start to remember how you studied. You might still be studying now. You're probably always still learning each day at your work or in your everyday life. So a lot of the traditional kind of methods, reading over my notes lots of times, highlighting key points. I love a good highlighter and a good wee stationery set. Teaching someone else, teaching myself using flashcards, past paper questions. This is my absolute one that I used to go to when I was a student studying for my exams at school. Just cram the knowledge in just before an exam, so it's all fresh in my head, and keep my fingers and toes crossed that the correct questions were going to come up for me. And revising a topic several times over the course of a few weeks. So some of those hopefully you will recognise as things that you have done or do. But there's a few in there that probably are not that helpful. And I'm going to draw your attention to the cramming before an exam as one of the key exemplars of that. What the research shows doesn't work without doing anything else, that there's no one way to revise, but a lot of common research just show that some of the most common and popular methods are not the most effective. For example, just rereading notes or class slides. Rewatching recordings without doing anything. So that kind of passive learning. We want our pupils and our students to be active learners in school, and that comes to studying as well. So rather than being passive and just reading information and hoping it goes in, we want them to do something with it, because that'll move it into the frontal lobe, where it stays into their moves from their frontal lobe, from their short-term memory into their long-term memory. Just highlighting notes, summarising whilst looking at notes, and cramming information in a short time before the assessment. My old favourite, unfortunately, has been proven to me time and time again, is not the way to go. And on occasion, I will admit to myself, I just got lucky, and I take a much, much different approach nowadays. So what does work? So this is the section that we're going to have a look at what the cognitive psychologist said. There's a few things to just keep in mind about this supporting young people. What you remember from school, maybe 30, maybe more, maybe slightly less years ago, hasn't really changed in about 200 years. However, the business of teaching and learning has. When you think of school, you might have a wee image in your head of people sitting in desks at rows, the teacher imparting all the wisdom in the front of the class, and the class eagerly listening and taking down notes, and then memorising all that information and regurgitating it in an exam. That has definitely changed, and it's changed dramatically, and there's a lot of different reasons why that has changed. Pedagogical thinking behind teaching and learning, that is the sort of the technical side of teaching and learning, where there's vast amounts of research being done, not only in this nation but across the world. And the collaboration there has told us that there are different ways to learn, that pupils learn in different ways, and that we as teachers are very responsive to that. Active learning, as I mentioned, is something that we're very keen on, and getting the pupils to lead on the learning as well. And that's something that we're going to pass over to them when it comes to study, and give them the empowerment that they need to be able to lead their own learning, lead their own study programme, and hopefully achieve what they need to out of it. Digital technology is fundamental to their success in learning and a crucial future skill. So our iPads are so well embedded now. Your young people, if you're in the senior phase, have had them since S1, possibly even before that at primary school. And they're very adept at using them. And I think one of the key things is when I ask senior phase pupils what would happen if I took your iPads away, there is a look of sheer and utter panic on their faces. Sorry, my computer is doing something a bit weird. Sheer and utter panic on their faces, because they keep everything in there. And it's really important that we allow them to use their digital tech as and when they need to. So all of the learning materials for exams, for revision, for practice onto their Teams and OneNote pages, and your young people will know where that is to access. Exams and coursework bear some similarities to the past, but in many cases now look different to traditional exams. And there's an increase in the amount of coursework in exams for many subjects. And actually, as you might be aware, there's a national debate on what exams in the traditional sense might look like in the future. Social lives are driven by technology to a greater or lesser extent, and that can sometimes interfere with a young person's, study schedule and so on. So I'm here to give you some hints and tips as well on how you can help manage that for them. So the science of revision, cognitive psychologists, this is what they tell us works. So eating well, I know it's not even a study tip necessarily, but actually eating well is really, really important. It seems like such an obvious thing to say, but providing a really good, nutritious breakfast sets them up well for the day, and make sure that they are ready to learn. And the research finds that skipping breakfast significantly reduces attention and recall ability. So start the day as you mean to go on. And again, not another one that's necessarily related to the sort of the act of study itself, but sleeping well. And I know that this is such a tricky one when it comes to young people, and their circadian rhythms have changed in the last couple of years. They're staying up much later. They have busy social lives, extracurricular activities, but it's really important to exercise some good sleep hygiene and get sort of, into a habit of having a regular bedtime, regular downtime before bedtime, so that they can switch off, get the sleep that they need. And this is going to be fundamental in helping them with their study and with their exams. The research shows that actually this is critical in consolidating their memory, that the short-term patterns then go into the long-term memories when they get enough good quality sleep. An effective work-break balance, slogging away for hours is likely counter-effective. So they become overwhelmed, they stop remembering things, the brain starts to move and become distracted. So we're here to help strategise the smarter way to work. And study environment, where is study happening and what are the distractions? And of course, I've put down their phones and digital, and I probably feel like I'm contradicting myself a little bit by saying that they need to use a digital technology, but they need to use it in a mindful way, where they are using it for study and not just for TikTok, Snapchat, etc. And effective study techniques. What are the best techniques? So something that I've included here at length are sort of the hints and tips of what cognitive psychologists tell us is the best way to access study and get the most out of it. So eating well, don't skip meals. Brain food is a thing. Food with high protein content has been proven to help keep the brain mentally alert. Plenty of fruit and veg, limiting caffeine intake, and that's not just thinking about things like coffee, but what's in your soft drinks and so on and so forth. And I've said avoid sugar with a question mark, and I've got my, I love a biscuit, love a sweetie. Life is definitely for living, but it might be about thinking about what we're feeding them in their main meals, getting all the good veggies and good proteins in there, but of course allowing a little bit of snack time in there too. The science of sleep hygiene then, it's all about routine. And I know that a lot of parents do struggle to get their young people to bed on time, especially with things like when they're on social media and they've got phones in their room, tellies in their room and so on. You can't police them all the time. It's really impossible to do. However, we can model some good behaviours and we can encourage those good behaviours as well. The little clip that I've got at the bottom here, it won't play on a presentation, it'll just come out as kind of gobbledygook. So I'll let you access that at your own time. But BBC Bitesize has put together a whole kind of series of little clips which are just excellent. It's actually led by young people from Scotland who are asking a clinical psychologist about the best way to do things. And the little clip at the bottom of this page is about what to do about creating a good bedtime routine. I think the one that's kind of jumps out at me here is a really good one about planning with your friends not to be online. I think that can be very empowering, and actually saying, do you know what, between 8 and 10 tonight, we're not going to contact each other. Don't send any messages. We're going to actually concentrate on what homeworks, what study we have to do. And then it leaves the desire, the FOMO, the fear of missing out to kind of grab the phone, get on the message, get on the Snapchat and so on. Something that's really important is putting down the digital about an hour before bed so that we've got that detox from the blue light and our brains can start to calm down. Encourage your young person maybe to have a warm caffeine-free drink at that point and get themselves ready to go to sleep. And if they can, end their day screen-free, get them reading their books. It might be a study book, or it might be, which I would encourage more, a book for enjoyment. Setting goals and being realistic in the effective work-break balance. So breaking it up, 30 minutes of study, 10 minutes of distraction. On the approach to assessments or exams, have a calendar plan. I've included a couple of links here which will help them do that. So there is the senior phase assessment calendar, which is on our website. There is the MySQA SQA calendar, which tells them exactly when their final exams are coming up. That is out already and available to access. And they can also, on the back of that, download and create their own study timetable. So the SQA have devised an app where, and it's on their iPads too, where they put in what subjects they're doing. It will generate a study timetable for them and a schedule for them that makes suggestions of what to study when, depending on when their exam's coming up. And that's really, really handy. And then Study Smart on the BBC as well, which kind of draws together all the advice from the clinical psychologists that I've been talking about. To give them the advice that they need to help manage their study, their exam practice, and so on. So, effective study techniques. This is probably the one that you're going to want to know and find the most useful in working alongside your young parents. Something that my colleague Mrs. Fraser and other people in the school have been working on is the importance of something called metacognition. And essentially, in a nutshell, metacognition is knowing what you know and then having the empowerment to know what you don't know and being able to admit it to yourself, and therefore directing your study towards what might actually be trickier for you, but is going to be the game changer when it comes to passing your exams. Something that really helps with that is something called retrieval practice. So organising your notes, but revising in such a way in that it goes into your brain and then doing something quite active with it so that it sticks into your long-term memory so that you're able to produce what you need to when it comes to it in the exams. And here's one that you might not have considered, that spacing out the revision is actually more important than kind of cramming it all in. So, for example, 1 hour a day over 10 days of a topic is better than 10 hours in one day. Strategy 1, getting started. That can always be a bit of a mountain to climb. So working out what they need to know. Teachers are amazing at this, and they will give your young people the list, essentially, for want of a better phrase, of everything that they need for their subjects. Subjects are split into topics and into units at National 5 Higher and Advanced Higher, and teachers will have that well planned out. Quite often they have calendars of what they're covering when in the year, and so on and so forth, and your young people will have been provided with that. The nice thing about our iPads is that Teams and OneNote means that absolutely everything is on there. So any class materials, any revision materials, there's not a necessity for any teacher to print anything anymore, to photocopy things, and for anything to be missed, because all of the files are electronic and they are on there. That's not to say if your young person actually operates better with maybe a paper copy, please just do ask your teachers and let them access the learning in the way that they feel the best support. Identifying areas of weakness. Our pupils love to do the things that they're really good at. And of course, we want to encourage that. But when it comes to exams, we don't want to shy away from the hard questions or the things they find a bit trickier. So sometimes traffic lighting topics can be a really good way to help them do that. So if there's any reds, encourage them to start with revising those areas first, and more often perhaps than something they feel really comfortable at, or they have got the skills in and they've got it nailed, because that's going to be the game changer for them, especially in subjects where there's not just one, it's a choice between different questions, and it's a bit of a surprise in what might come up. They'll have to cover a lot of content and be assured that actually they're confident in everything that they're being asked of when it comes to that exam. Testing themselves, so practicing the retrieving information, testing themselves frequently, and here's how you can help them do that. Test them on what they've learned. Make up week quizzes, get them to make up quizzes for you to give them. Try to ask unexpected questions to check for understanding. And again, there's a lovely little article here that talks about flashcards and why, or how people have used flashcards in the past, and a better way to use them nowadays. Strategy 3 is finding the gaps. Okay, so helping your young person to work out where the gaps in their knowledge are, or where the gaps in their skills are. And I said there's a key part of metacognition, knowledge about your own knowledge. And the goal is to be able to improve this metacognition for each subject, being able to identify specific areas for improvement. And supporting at home. After testing, doing past paper practice, try and work out why we didn't so well. So it's not just we got that wrong, okay, I'm not so good at that. Let's figure out where we went wrong. Was it the structure of the question that we were unsure of and we didn't understand? Was it that we just didn't remember the content for answering that question? Do we genuinely just not understand this topic or subject? Or my bad habit, I didn't read the question properly and I answered something completely different than what was asked of me. And of course, if these problems kind of come up, it's something you might not be able to help the young person with, depending on the content, subjects, so on, then that's when they need to go and ask the teacher for some support. Past papers are great. They try and sell them to you in WH Smiths. I'm here to tell you that they are absolutely freely available on the SQA website, and I've included the web link here to allow you to do that effectively. So practicing doing sample answers can help train your brain to retrieve information, doing the same question for more than once. And I'm speaking from my own subject experience here in history and modern studies, but the questions tend to be themed, and the way that the question can come up can be asked in a variety of different ways with different starter stems and so on and so forth. But the topics are ostensibly the same. So it's getting used to the kind of questions that you could be asked. And the SQA, they want people to do well, but it's about understanding how different questions can be phrased, the different ways in which something can be asked, so that they're not thrown on the day. Teaching others, I really love this one, and it's called the protege effect. There's a link in here as well that you can have a look at to help you dig in a little bit deeper. But essentially, once you think you've learned something, is teaching it to somebody else and see how effectively that happens. Does the person that you're teaching then have the acquired knowledge or understanding that you would be replicating in the exam? Try doing it several times, longer gaps between each time you do it. Okay, so teach me the process of osmosis on Tuesday, and I'm going to ask you again on Saturday morning, and keep on doing it. We all know sort of the 20,000 hour rule. If you do something often enough and you repeat it often enough, then you'll become an expert in it. the impact of teaching. There's just a wee infographic there. Thinking it, saying it, and teaching it. Really powerful. And spaced repetition as well. So rather, like I said, they're doing something on the Tuesday, then doing it again on the Saturday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're doing different topics. And it's called interleaving. It's a fancy way of saying kind of mix it up a little bit in terms of what you're revising and what you're doing. So it would kind of look like this. So let's say that A was history, B was modern studies, C was English. And interleave practice wouldn't look like A, B, and C all chunked together, but we're doing a bit of English, a bit of mods, a bit of history on one day, and then mixing it up for the rest of the week. And the timetables that they can create to help them for their study is actually very good at doing that for them. So it doesn't just tell them to kind of cram one thing before an exam, but actually it plans out for them. Here's what you've got coming up, and here's how you could interleave your study. And spaced repetition. A century of research has shown repeated testing works. Flashcards in the organised box, and I would advise you to go and look at the little flashcards clips so that you can maximise how to use them effectively. But realistically, I remember a lot of tips kind of coming from teachers around the school saying we still kind of like some of the old traditional things, post-its around bathrooms, quotes on mirrors, things like that, when things are just kind of stuck up, and it kind of goes in by that process of repetition and passing them often. So summing up then, using mnemonics as well is actually a really effective way. And here's a wee example that I might use for studying. For example, great students teach tests for progress, so GST, CFP. And students kind of find that quite helpful. I know that for subjects where there's a huge amount of knowledge that goes into what they're studying for, sometimes just having it in sort of a little bullet point like this, creating their own mnemonics is really, really helpful for kind of triggering in their memories. And it's always advisable to the students as well that when it comes to things like their exams, they're allowed to kind of doodle in the margins and so on and write in the mnemonics that will actually help prompt their memories. And they can just scribble it out at the end. The examiners haven't got time to pay them any attention. They'll just crack on with the marking as soon as they possibly can. So I've given you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of sort of the key study hints and tips that I will offer to pupils as well. We have some study support classes which I've added to the website in various different subjects, and that will be updated each month. So that'll be refreshed each month. And I'll ask Mrs. Walker to send out any updates in the parent bulletin too. There will also be Easter study classes when we get there. So you might be thinking kind of long term, towards the exams. May rolls around pretty quickly. So we'll hold Easter study classes in school as well. They're always very popular with our young people. And it gives them a good chance to kind of come in and reassure themselves kind of towards that sort of last minute nature of study, and also kind of get the sort of the key practice or hone in on where their gaps are and get in one-to-one advice from their teachers at that point in time. We also have study support in school. Some pupils have access to teachers and supported study blocks, and I'll be passing out this presentation to all of those teachers, but to all pupils as well, so that they have the access to the same information that you've got to help them with their study. Quite often, a lot of people say to us, I just kind of don't know how to study. What are the best hints and tips for getting me to do that? Subject specialists are great because they've got hints and tips that work in their own subjects, but this is one that's just kind of more generic and might be able to help frame their thinking, and hopefully also get them to think about things like staying up too late, too much use of the mobile phone, too many distractions, and getting rid of the white noise, as it were, so that they can concentrate on the task at hand. So I'll open the floor up to any questions, but of course everything here will be added onto the parent bulletin tomorrow, and I'll add the presentation onto the website. Please feel free to to download it, to use it to your benefit. Other ways that you can support your child's study as well. BBC Bite Size is one of my absolute favourites because they have an entire section set up for the Scottish system. National 5, higher. It doesn't have everything though, but it does, for a lot of the subjects, provide information and retests online. Glow, if you are have a young person who is studying any of the sciences, and I know our scientists use Glow quite a lot. science, business studies, there is English, maths, and now geography are available in GLOW. So GLOW is run, sorry, this is Scholar I'm talking about. Scholar is run by Heriot Watt, and what they do, or what they have done, is they have created sort of mini supplementary courses that go with each of the national level courses, so like National 5 and higher, in specific subjects. And our students find them really invaluable in terms of kind of supporting their learning that they're doing in class, but also being able to apply that learning when it comes to things like exam questions. GLOW is a little bit different. It can be a bit tricky to get into, but I have all the GLOW passwords. If your young person needs to log into GLOW, they can come in and see myself, or they can see Mrs. Reid, and we can get them started on that. And again, there's a whole plethora of hints and tips and subject support on GLOW that will help them with their exam practice. And Quizlet and Kahoot are two teaching tools that we use quite regularly in school, but they have lots of ready-made quizzes on topics, on exam questions that the pupils can log into at home, and it's quite fun for them to do, and a quite fun way to apply their learning in terms of their study. So just a few extra ways there to help you access studying. I've put into here as well some other links that might be useful to you, so as well as BBC Bitesize and the past papers, a good article about managing stress and anxiety from The Guardian. TED Talks are always a good way, and here's a wee link to a specific one about motivation and revision. And if you want to, if you're brave enough, there's a wee article about the merits of blocking some apps on their phone and improving productivity. Setting timers on their phone can be a really good one as well if you find that they're getting too distracted away from the task at hand. And there we are. Right, so I'll come back onto Teams now. And Mrs. Walker, are there any questions? I mean, people can...
Yeah, but Vicky Lewis has had her hand up for some time, so I don't know if that is a mistake or if Vicky wanted to say something. No. Maybe not.
Oh, no, sorry, that was a mistake. Sorry.
No worries at all.
That's okay, not a problem. Philippa, yeah, I'm in the ha-ha-ha category, even trying to get the phone prized out of their hands at this stage. It's going to be a miracle for me if I ever achieve it. I'll just open it up because if anyone wants to just raise their hand and ask the question, it's probably fine just to ask the question if you're confident enough. If you want to do that, not a problem. If you want to pop it in the chat, then that's not a problem as well. So Philippa, I haven't gone through this with the young people specifically, but what I will do is I will hand it out to the guidance team so that they can do it in social education lessons. I'll also give it to the teacher to run study blocks within the timetable as well, so they can go through it and give it to the young people. And we'll make it freely available to the young people on the website too, so that they can access it whenever they want to, same as yourselves. The one that I've got here is the advice that I would still give the students, but with the wee kind of hints and tips on it for parents in the little highlighted boxes at the end. But it might be good to just kind of talk it through with them. If there's something that they're struggling with, say, do you know what, we can actually sit side by side and we can go through it. Does any of this resonate with you? Is there anything that you could, try as one of your study strategies here? And how can I help you? A prelim timetable, and do the SQA generate a timetable revision for that as help? So, Mrs. Walker, will I pass over to you for the FABs rather than prelims?
Yeah, we don't do prelims. We haven't done them for a very long time now, probably knocking on more than 5 years. And instead we do assessment blocks. So your young people will already be involved in assessment block 1. It's ongoing assessment. The point of assessment is feedback. And the prelims is a very old-fashioned way of doing that. So it's basically a one-size-fits-all big bang approach. So instead it's as we go. It generates the evidence for where we think they are. It gives them feedback as we go. So the USQA don't generate a timetable for revision anyway. They do it for the final exam. However, there's, excuse me, in guidance, they tend to do a wee session where they do a bit of study skills block where they set up a revision timetable. Achieve is in the school now, and I believe that they are. We've had a license for some time. It's just it wasn't being used. So I believe that the CDT they're using it are pushing the resources out as we speak.
I think it's CDT were the people who trialled it first, Claire, and then what I might get the CL of CDT to do is relay that to the other curriculum leaders and other subjects, just in case they're not yet using it, because he's extolled the virtues of it just for some time now, and it does seem really excellent. And what it does for anyone who's listening, it's a website. It's actually created and run by teachers. What they've done is essentially they've pulled every single past paper question you can possibly imagine, for most subjects, I think, into one website, so the pupils can practice a past paper question, submit it, and get instant feedback on it. So what's gone well, what they need to change, that kind of thing. So I'll speak to him over the next couple of days, and I'll see if we can get that kind of more prominent in terms of a revision tool, because it's a great one.
Yeah. Philip is asking again about prelims. No, we don't send assessments home. They are confidential and need to stay in the school. We also don't send papers home, because if we have other young people who need to do them at a later date, they need to still be valid instruments of assessment. We've never sent home those assessments, whether it was in the old days of prelims or where we have it spread now. You get the marks through your reports or parents' nights, but no, we don't send those home, I'm afraid.
There's also an issue that we need to keep them in school in case any young person does need exceptional circumstances when it comes to the exams, in which case we would need that evidence that they've generated in school to pass over to the SQA. However, that is very rare, but that is just another additional piece of info for why we don't give the papers out. You were meaning the marks? Yes, sorry. Yeah, I think Pauline's answered that for you, so thank you. Is there anything else anyone would like to ask?
Yes, the report should have your results, or it'll certainly have the feedback from the results. So in some cases it generates, things they need to do. Sometimes the marks go on the reports. Ask your young person if they've done one and if they have marks. And if they're being tricky, you can always email us. Although we can't do that en masse. But I'm sure your young person's already got their feedback. Check their Teams, it's quite often on there. A lot of the feedback goes on to the channels and Teams. No, no more, Miss Hughes.
No more?
I think no, don't think so.
Well, I really hope it was useful. I know it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. There's a lot of writing on the slides, but I think that talking through them at length doesn't help, but talking kind of around the main themes does, and then you kind of can dig in at your own leisure. Do have a look at the BBC clips. I think that they're super. They're really, really super. And like I said, it's actually been made by young people who are clearly in sort of fifth year at high school in Scotland as well. So it kind of is relevant and resonates with young people. So it talks about the Scottish curriculum. Yeah, I'll pop the slides on the website tomorrow, not a problem. But if there is anything that you think, oh, I wish I'd asked that, or I thought of that later on, please do just get in contact. You can email the admin or just email myself directly. That might be easy, and you'll get a reply that way. And please do share the presentation with your young people, and we will also do that in school too.
Okay.
Vanessa, you can pop my email, just my email.
I'll do it just now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mrs. Walker. I don't want to touch anything since my computer doesn't like me anymore this evening.
There we go. Thanks very much for coming along, everyone. It's lovely to see so many of you keen. And good luck, fingers crossed for everybody. And remember, it's just one exam. We can only do our best as long as they try their best on the day, no matter what happens.